Hey friends, it's Laura with Laura B Floss Tube. Welcome or welcome back. I'm so glad you joined me today. So I did a video a few weeks ago that talked about some vintage quilts and embroidered projects and my plans for those. I thought I would record the first video with a project from that pile, and that is going to be our embroidered tea towels. So as I discussed in that video, we are going to turn those into a quilt top, and then the quilt top will be quilted and finished and adorable and then gifted to a child at Easter next year through the Angel Wings Clothing Closet in Mexico, Missouri. So that is something that is I hold dear to my heart. Definitely impacts the life of a child and a family. And you know, these are repurposed items that can be enjoyed for many more years to come. So let's get started with getting our tea towels into a shape where we can start planning our quilt and getting our blocks cut. So here on the cutting table, I've actually started cutting some of these already, so I already know what size I can cut these down to. We are going with 8.5-inch squares. So I have my 8.5-inch ruler and my rotary cutter. And this one is the W, and it's going to be kind of tight on the blocks, but this is the size that we're going with. And we do still have a 1/4-inch seam all the way around. Let me see if I'm just going to line this up and cut this block out. Now the rest of this tea towel material will be used in other projects. I'm not just going to throw it out. I might actually make some smaller tea towels because those are really large, and you know, use those for maybe our quilt show, marketplace this fall, or gifts at Christmas, or who knows what I might do with these. This quilt is going to be so cute, you guys. Alrighty. Now this one, whew, it barely fits, but it'll be all right. I'll make it work. I did try the a 9-inch and a 9.5-inch square before I went with 8.5, and those were just a little too big. I couldn't get it centered. So the trade-off was to have a couple of the blocks pretty tight in the quilt design. Here's the last one. All right, so there are 7 days in the week, so that means I have 7 blocks, and I've kind of been playing with the design a little bit this morning just on some scratch paper, and I decided to go with an on-point quilt layout. So we're going to grab some fabric and cut our setting triangles and then get these into a quilt top. To give you an idea of what we're going for here, here's my little chicken scratches. And basically I'm going to put the 7 blocks that we just cut out of the tea towels on point. And then I'll have my setting triangles around those and put a couple more borders around that center of the quilt top to have a nice throw size for a kiddo. So I use the allpeoplequilt.com setting triangle guide. So I know that with these blocks finishing at 8 inches, I need my setting triangles to be cut for the sides at 12 5/8. Now the way that these are set together, that's all I'm going to have. I'm only going to have side setting triangles. I'm not going to have those corners. So I will cut them all at 12 5/8, and I need 10 of them. So I'll cut 3 squares, and that's 1 cut from a width of fabric. This is a red fabric I just found in my stash, and I've had it for a while. And this is a worthy project for it to be used on. So I'm at the 2, so I'm going to go to 14 and 5/8. Now I usually cut mine just a little bit bigger just to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm going to go ahead and go to 12 3/4. Three of these. Flip this over. Wow, I probably should iron this, but we're going to take a chance. Now this is the side setting triangles. So I am going to cut 2 directions on these squares. And I will link the chart that I use in the description box below. I really like it. There's several different sites that have the setting triangle information out there, and there is math to go with it. So if you don't have one of the preset sizes that they talk about, you can do the math and figure out what your triangle should be. I honestly try to avoid that though. Here's the last one I need. Now I'm going to leave this fabric out because after we get our setting triangles on there, I want to do a narrow border and then a wider border out of this red again. And the reason I chose red was because the embroidered blocks that we have a red outline, and I feel like that's going to really set those blocks off nicely. All right, so there's all the setting triangles I need. Time to start sewing things together. So here we are at the ironing board. I have sewn the first row in this first corner together. I just wanted to make sure everything was going to work out the way I thought. And it is, so it's all good. I did decide to go ahead and put a real thin border in between these blocks just because they needed a little, I felt like they needed a break between all of the tea towel fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and put the next row together and kind of show you my process in doing that and getting the setting triangles on the ends and then attaching those rows together. Here we are at the sewing machine, and so I am angrily challenged, you guys. I cannot for the life of me remember which way triangles are supposed to do when I'm doing setting triangles, just because I just can't. So I have to like take the block and position it and say, okay, this is that block, this setting triangle goes like this, and lay it out and flip it over. So when you're doing setting triangles, basically you want to line up this bottom corner to the bottom corner of your block, and you're just going to sew along that side. Now remember, I cut my setting triangles a little bigger than they needed to be, just to give myself a little wiggle room, and I'll trim things down straight when I get my rows together. Now the other thing that I'm doing is I am going to put that little bit of a sashing between the blocks, and don't be coming at me, all you haters out there, don't be coming at me. Yes, I am breaking a rule here. I am not going to measure this. I'm just going to sew it on. And I'm also going to sew on the next one. Now, I feel confident doing this because I am using a Juki DX7 and I have a box feed system for my presser foot, which means it doesn't really pull like some other machines do. The box feed kind of moves around in a box pattern, and so it doesn't do this like just back and forth thing or a circular motion where it doesn't like pull your fabric through. It actually feeds it through pretty evenly on the top and bottom. I'm just going to trim this off. I know, I'm breaking rules. This is a small quilt, and it's going to be fine. I promise. It's going to be fine. Okay, and I'm just going to finger press that back. Oops. And yes, I probably should have press this block down too, but I'm not going to do that. Rules are made to be broken, right? One more. I'm actually going to flip it over because I kind of like those little tea towels on the bottom. side, and then I'm going to lay this out the way it's going to be laying on the quilt. Look at my little chart here, saying this is Wednesday. So this goes like that. Flip that over, flip this around. All right, so here is the second row for our quilt, those cute little strips in between. Okay, this is a full disclosure moment. So this, in my mind and in my little scratch, I was like, this will work, but it's not gonna work because I need 4 blocks here in order to make this width. So we're going to improvise. I'm gonna take this setting triangle off and this setting triangle off, and we're gonna cut 8.5 by 9.5 inch rectangles to attach to these ends. And then after they're attached, we will square up the corners, and then we can get our quilt top together. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there. Obviously I did something wrong. So I'm gonna put this corner together because this is gonna mimic this. And then I'll figure out that center row. Oops. Okay, so this looks better. All right, so I cut these rectangles at 8.5 by 12. I knew that was gonna be way too big, and it is, but that's fine because I will sew them together and then trim down the corners with one of my square rulers. So this is gonna work out great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the center of this block on the top and bottom, either with a pencil mark or a pen or something, and line that up to the center of this. So I can sew this row on, and then I can sew this row on to the bottom, and then I'll square up these corners. So this block right now is 8 inches, which makes sense because it was 8.5 inch, and then I put seams on both sides. So I'm going to mark at the 4 on the top and the bottom. And that's going to help me line that up on the sashing. And I just marked barely on the edge, so you're not going to see it. It's fine, promise. Yeah, okay. We have the rows sewn together, and I just need to square up these corners. So I grabbed the largest square ruler I have, which happens to be my Lori Holt 14.5 inch, or 16.5 inch actually, cute cuts ruler. So I'm just going to square up these corners. Now I probably could have done the math on this, and I probably could have figured it out, but this is easier. So I have 2 corners to square up, and then we can start talking about the outer borders. So the center of this is 30 inches square. I usually try to get my donation quilts for angel wings around 36 inches square. So that just means like a 3.5 inch border all the way around, and that way my finished size would be 36.5. So honestly, I thought about doing a double border on this, but now that I know I'm only 6 inches away, I I may just do a single outer border on this. And in fact, I might just do the red and have all of this set just in red. Or I may do a thin white border and then a wider red. So if you've done a quilt top like this before, you know that you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants and you're kind of working it out as you go along. If you've done that before, you know that you sit back and you think, I could do this, I could do this. Which way am I going to go? And really the best and easiest way that I've found is just to kind of audition some things. So let me get a couple fabrics out and we will look at with a double border and with a single border and see if we have a preference on which. So I went ahead and cut some strips because I think I know what I'm going to do, but we're going to audition anyway. I could just do a red strip on the outer border. And that would look pretty good, actually. I could just do red. Just a red and white quilt with some embroidery on it. That's beautiful. Or I could do a thin border out of this cream and then do the red. And I think that's what I'm going to do. On this final outer border, the top and the bottom, I am going to backstitch here. That way when I go to quilt this on the long arm, I don't have to worry about that seam giving, and it can be tight on the long arm machine and not worry about any seams given. The other thing that I'm doing, this is a very small quilt, okay? So normally I would pin my borders on, but this is so small that I felt confident that I could just get them on there without doing it. I did cut them to the correct size, the correct length that I needed for each of them. So what I'm doing on this outer border is I know that I cut them on the fold. So I can line up the fold in this one to the fold in this one, and I know that's the center point on the outer border. And I'm just holding that folded, pre-folded fabric fold between my fingers to get to the center. And then once I'm at the center, I will hold it to the edge of the quilt. So now I'm at the center, and I'll take this corner and line it up on the corner edge and just hold here to get the border on there, to get it distributed evenly across the side of the quilt. Again, if this was a larger quilt, I would not do that. I would pin it on, but I knew that, this is like a 38-inch finish, so I knew that I would be able to do that and not have a problem. And again, I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and end of these outer borders just to give it a little more stability. When I go to put it on the long arm, I know that this seam will not come apart on me. Okay, so you're going to notice a couple things. One, I am covered in strings. Two, this is a different outfit. Different day entirely. Three, I have been very close and personal with my seam ripper today. But finally, you're going to notice that the quilt top has been revised. Oh my goodness. So I'm just going to say sometimes when you're designing a quilt, you get so focused on the project that you don't take a step back and look at the larger picture. And that is exactly what happened with this quilt top. No, I am not in Europe. I do not start my day of the week with Monday. I knew that the Sunday block was upside down pretty quickly after I posted a photo, but I did not realize that the middle row was not something that would be appropriate for a child or any of my friends for that matter. And I really do appreciate all the comments and questions that I received on that because, yeah, that was a problem. But I've spent, let me check the time. I have spent 75 minutes seam ripping and taking every single block in the quilt top apart except for Wednesday and Thursday. They were the only 2 blocks in the entire quilt top that did not need to be taken apart and moved. So yeah, the seam ripper and I have had a lot of fun today. We have ripped every single seam in this quilt top and we have assembled it back together. Now, please don't come at me about my wavy border over there. It'll quilt out, I promise. And I know people say that, and I know that some of you are going to be like, that's not going to quilt out. I'll make it work, okay? I'll make it work. I'm just not. I'm done with it. The quilt top is not cursing at anyone. The Sunday block is not upside down. And that's where I'm going to leave it. So yeah, if you happen to be here from the previous video, you'll notice that that video was severely shortened. And this is your full-length video on the process for making this quilt top with tea towels. So let me give you a close-up of what the revised quilt top looks like. As you can see, the Sunday block is right side up. The embroidery on these blocks is really phenomenal. I really feel like a lot of time and effort was put into them. They are gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Here's Tuesday, and then finally Friday and Saturday. So yes, this is the completed quilt top. So again, thank you so much to everyone that commented and pointed out that the Sunday block was upside down. Had that fixed pretty quickly. Thank you to everyone else that commented and realized that I was not paying attention on that middle row of blocks. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for all your comments, your suggestions. I really do appreciate everyone that pointed out that I had a really bad design flaw in my quilt top. And I did just want to make this video and just stick it on to the end and let you know that yes, I do listen to your comments. I do take them seriously, and I will rip an entire quilt top apart for you. So hey, I hope you are having a great day. I hope you and your seam ripper are not as close and personal as I have been with mine today. I hope you are creating and crafting and finding joy. And until next time, happy stitching.